Hi Booktube, how are you all? I'm Marilyn and today I'm here with a tag. I haven't done a tag in so long and there's a lot of tags going around now after a long dry period of no tags. And I was tagged by Jolene at Bookworm Adventure Girl with the Don't You Forget About Me book tag. And I thought it was really interesting to talk about the books that I have and why I feel the way I do about them. Okay, so let's go right into it because I have a lot of books to talk about. The first prompt is clean slates. Books you've read that you don't remember anything about. Okay, this might be an unusual answer, but I have a collection of Agatha Christie books. This is only part of my collection. And if I tell you that I don't remember the ending of any of them, I'm not lying. Recently, there was a movie about Death on the Nile, and that's the one I'm going to talk about. And I promise you, I've read this Death on the Nile more than once. And it was a wonderful production, by the way. If I can find out the name of of course it's Death on the Nile, but if, the actors and everything, it might be the latest one. It was a wonderful production, and I promise you, I was so surprised at the end, even though I know I read this so many times. And then I realized that that's what's so great about Agatha Christie. I don't remember most of her endings. I read and then there were none, and I thought I knew who done it. And I promise you, I was as surprised as I was the first time. And I was saying, no, it can't be that person, but it was. So, I think it's something about Agatha Christie and her writing that it's fresh every time. So that's my answer for that. There's a lot of books here. And, I really can't remember the ending of even maybe one, The Murder of Roger Ackroid, maybe. And that's a maybe, but that was because it so stunned me. Okay, the second prompt is Jeannie's Lamp. Books you wish you could forget. Okay, I don't really keep books that I want to forget or try to think about them too much, but I read one recently that I talked about ad nauseum, and I'll have a cover here. It's A Dog's Ransom by Patricia Highsmith. And I hated that book really bad. It was just a mess. And I've read The Price of Salt, and I loved it. I haven't read her other books, but I plan to. The other book that I don't want to talk about, but I will, it's only because my review got a lot of likes on Goodreads, and it's called I'm not even going to put that cover on. I don't want to, but I will put my review on about the book down in the comments, and it's called The White Messiah, and it takes cultural appropriation to a new level in my eyes. And what I said was, it's written by Corinne Hoffman. She's a German woman, and I said she's so self-centered, so stubborn, so man-centered and shallow, it made me sick. She falls in love with a man for his looks alone. If you read the whole book, it is his looks that she thinks she loves, and maybe her imagination of what a Maasai warrior is, and not anything about the culture. And what I remember is she puts herself and her child in so many dangerous situations. She never tries to really understand what she's getting into. I really hated this book with a passion. Okay, so those are the I wish I could forget. I think I have forgotten. I had to look on Goodreads to see. So yeah, maybe I'll never forget it. How bad it was. Now 3 is Forgotten Gems. Books you think need more love. I'm going to talk about Barbara Comyns. And I have to say that all of her books are so different from one another. I don't have all of them here, but the first one I read, and maybe it's my favorite of all of her books, is Our Spoons Came from Woolworth. And Maggie O'Farrell said about her, quite simply, Comyns writes like no one else. And that is so true. There is a section of this book where she describes childbirth, her birthing a child. That was so funny and so relatable that I slipped to the floor laughing. And I love that so much. So let me tell you about it. It's also introduced, this book, by Maggie O'Farrell. And pretty unworldly Sophia is 21 and hastily married to Charles, a young painter. An artist's model with an eccentric collection of pets, she is ill-equipped to cope with 1930s Bohemian London, where poverty, babies, however much love, and husband conspire to torment her. I have to read this again. And Maggie O'Farrell says, I defy anyone to read the opening pages and not to be drawn in, as I was. Sophia is a heroine in every sense, and one you will never forget. Now I have to read the first, she was born, I'm going to read the first few pages because that made me want to read it again. And she was born in 1909, and she was married first to 1931 to an artist, and for the second time in 1945, where she lived in Spain for 18 years. She was born on Bidford on Avon and educated mainly by governesses. So some of the books that she wrote were Sisters by a River, which I haven't read. This one, Our Spoons Came from Woolworths, Who Was Changed and Who Is Dead, which I didn't read. The Vet's Daughter, which I'm going to talk about, in The House of Dolls, which I didn't talk, that I have right here. The Juniper Tree, I have it, but I'm not going to. I'm going to just talk about it a little bit. Anyway, let me just read the first chapter. This is the introduction, but and I like Maggie O'Farrell's writing, so I remember now. It's a great sentence. I told Helen my story, and she went home and cried. In the evening, her husband came to see me and brought some strawberries. He mended my bicycle too and was kind, but he needn't have been because it all happened 8 years ago, and I'm not unhappy now. Yeah, that is wonderful. And I'm going to read it again. I have to read it again. Another book of hers that I just want to talk about briefly is The Vet's Daughter. And it's a book that I don't usually read. It's a Gothic masterpiece. I've read a few Gothic books that I've loved. But this has a touch of magical realism in it. But it's done in such a way that it didn't bother me. And I'm not a reader of magical realism. It's Sarah Waters, who's very popular. I haven't read her, but she's a very popular author on Booktube, said, The Vet's Daughter is a small Gothic masterpiece. I have read it many times, and with each reread, I marvel again at its qualities, its darkness, its strangeness, its humor, its sadness, its startling images and twists of phases. And it's told in the first person, by a young girl, and it just has the vividness and innocence of the revelatory intensity of the narrations of Pip or young David Copperfield. So that's saying a lot, and I really enjoyed this book, The Vet's Daughter. I didn't enjoy The House of Dolls as much, and the other book that I was talking about, that was The Juniper Tree, I didn't even realize that The Juniper Tree, I don't have it with me right now, but I didn't realize that it was a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and which is one of my favorite fairy tales of all times. Not the Disney one, but I mean the real Beauty and the Beast. So, but she told it in such a way, such a modern way, that I didn't realize it was a retelling, and that takes a lot of skill as a writer, in my opinion. Okay, now, number 3, Forgotten Gems, books you think need more love. For that, I guess I have a few books. One is a book of short stories by Lucia Berlin, Evenings in Paradise. And I'm not a big follower of short stories. I've been beginning to love short stories, but Lucia Berlin is a very interesting person. So I read her manual for cleaning women, and that was a post, after she died, she was a relatively unknown writer, and it was 2015. It became it got widespread acclaim. I read that, and I really enjoyed that book, actually. And these stories are carefully selected from the remaining uncompiled Berlin stories, provide the same warmth, nostalgia, and down-on-your-luck characters that made a manual for cleaning women so beloved. Raw and funny and breathtakingly great, Lauren Groff says. So, So who was Lucia Berlin? She was born in 1936. And she died in 2004, and I think she died of alcoholism. There's a small picture of her here. It's very 60s. I don't know. It's very small too. I don't know if you can see it. She worked brilliantly but sporadically throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s, sober after a lifelong battle with alcoholism and writing steadily by the 1990s. She took a visiting writer's post at the University of Colorado Boulder in 1994 and soon became an associate professor. In 2001, in failing health, she moved to Southern California to be near her sons, and she died there, Marina Del Rey. So if you haven't heard of Lucia Berlin, I think she deserves a lot more love. I have other books, but I don't want to make this a long video, so I will talk about them at another time. Okay, number 4 is Forget-Me-Nots, books you will always remember. Now, of course, there are so many, right? There's so many books, but I picked out a few books here. And one was How Green Was My Valley by Richard Llewellyn, which is about a Welsh family. And it was the winner of the National Book Award of 1940. And it's a classic novel of memory. Hugh Morgan, and I'm probably saying that, is about to leave home forever. And he reminisces about the golden days of his youth when South Wales still prospered, when gold dust had not yet blackened the valley, and drawn simply and lovingly with a crisp Welsh humor and almost like poetry. It was gorgeous. Buddy read this, and I loved it. Glad I read it. As I did first time, and these are all books that I read because of BookTube. I didn't read them before. The Country Girls by the trilogy by Edna O'Brien. Wonderful. Elizabeth Von Arnim's Enchanted April. I saw the movie, and the book is so much better than the movie, and loved it. I'm reading more by Elizabeth Von Arnim. Just wonderful. Of course, my beloved A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith just is located in the same area, literally, where I was born. I was brought up in a Brooklyn project, and these were, before I was born, they were cold water flats that were torn down to make the project. And this is about Francie, who lives in one of those cold water flats with her parents. And there's a tree growing in front of her house. And it's a coming of age. It's a beautiful book. Yeah, what can I say about that? And I'm not going to talk too much about Jane Eyre. That's one of my favorites. And Cora Sandel. Let me just get this. Crane's Cafe. I read with Lindy, as I did her other books. Just love these new authors and old authors. Now, the next thing is to tag some cool people who love books. Isn't that almost everybody on BookTube? But I made a longer list than usual because I haven't done a tag in a while. And the first person is Pat. She has a relatively new channel. She's a wonderful person. Book Chat with Pat. I'll have all these down in the description. Katja, Page Turners with Katja. Kim, at Middle of the Book March, my good friend. Sarah, she's a newer booktuber and she needs a lot of love. She's a wonderful booktuber, wonderful reader. Her channel is Roadworthy. Hannah, at Hannah's Books. Freddie, my friend Freddie at Sluggish Reader. Elizabeth, at Bookins and Books. Kathy Grimm, at The Grim Reader. My friend Gina Stanier, who calls me MMM. Love her. Brian, at Bookish Texan. Berna, at Berna's Bookish Adventures. Annnovela, a relatively new channel that's doing really well. Jim, at Books, Reading, and Stuff. I guess I'll stop there. That's a lot of people. Yeah, I think I got everybody. And whoever else wants to do this tag, because I think it's a really good chance of showing us what your favorites are, what you hated, and what you loved, what are your childhood favorites, what are your that stick in your mind. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and if you want to do this tag, please do it, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.